Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English in Minutes 2.0. I am Emma, your host for today. If you are new here, I would like to tell you that we upload new English learning videos regularly to help you improve your English faster and speak with greater confidence. In today's episode, you will improve your English listening, speaking, pronunciation, and conversation skills. We are going to practice advanced real-life English conversations that you can use in your daily life, at home, at work, while shopping, while traveling, when meeting new people, and in many other common situations. Throughout this masterclass, I will guide you through natural sentences, useful expressions, realistic conversation examples, and speaking exercises. You will learn how fluent English speakers begin conversations, ask follow-up questions, express their opinions, handle misunderstandings, make polite requests, and respond naturally without translating every sentence in their minds. You will also have time to listen carefully, repeat after me, practice the sentences aloud, and create your own responses. Do not worry about speaking perfectly. Focus on listening to the rhythm, copying the pronunciation, and speaking with confidence. By the end of this video, you will understand more natural English, build stronger speaking habits, and feel more prepared for real conversations. The more actively you practice with me, the more fluent and comfortable your English will become. Before we start the video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon if you want more helpful English learning episodes like this. So, find a quiet place, get comfortable, listen carefully, speak aloud, and let's begin this real-life English conversation practice masterclass. Let us begin with one of the most important skills in real-life English conversation, knowing how to start speaking naturally. Many English learners know hundreds or even thousands of words, but when a real person stands in front of them, their mind suddenly becomes blank. They begin thinking, what should I say first? What if I make a mistake? What if I do not understand the answer? This feeling is completely normal. The solution is not to memorize one perfect conversation. The solution is to become comfortable with a few natural opening phrases that can work in many different situations. Imagine that you arrive at your workplace in the morning and see a colleague near the entrance. You do not need to begin with a complicated question. You can simply say, "Good morning, how's it going?" This is a natural and friendly way to ask how someone is doing. The other person may reply, "It's going well, thanks. How about you?" You can answer, "I'm doing pretty well. I'm just getting ready for a busy day." Notice that this answer gives the other person a little more information. Instead of only saying, "I'm fine," you add a detail that helps the conversation continue. Listen to this short exchange. "Good morning. How's it going?" "It's going well, thanks. How about you?" "I'm doing pretty well. I'm just getting ready for a busy day." Now, repeat each sentence after me. "Good morning. How's it going?" "It's going well, thanks. How about you?" "I'm doing pretty well. I'm just getting ready for a busy day." Try to copy my rhythm and pronunciation. Do not speak word by word. Connect the words smoothly, as if the sentence were one complete sound. Now, imagine that the other person asks, "Do you have much going on today?" This means, "Are you busy today?" Or, "Do you have many things to do?" You could say, "Yes, I have a couple of meetings this morning, and I need to finish a report before lunch." The expression "a couple of" usually means two, but in everyday conversation, people sometimes use it more generally to mean a small number. You could also answer, "Not too much. I have a few things to take care of, but it should be a fairly relaxed day." Repeat these useful responses. "I have a couple of meetings this morning. I need to finish a report before lunch. I have a few things to take care of. It should be a fairly relaxed day." Now, Choose the response that is closer to your real life. Are you expecting a busy day? Or will your day be fairly relaxed? Say your answer aloud. You might say, I have a lot going on today. Or, I do not have much planned today. Add one more detail. For example, I have a lot going on today because I need to finish an important project. In natural conversation, follow-up questions are extremely important. A follow-up question shows that you are listening and that you are interested in the other person. Suppose someone says, I have an important meeting this afternoon. You could ask, what's the meeting about? You could also ask, have you been preparing for it? Or, are you feeling confident about it? These questions make the conversation feel natural because they are connected to what the person has just said. Listen to the conversation. I have an important meeting this afternoon. What's the meeting about? We're discussing our plans for the next few months. That sounds important. Have you been preparing for it? Yes. I spent most of yesterday organizing my notes. I hope it goes well. This conversation is simple, but it includes several valuable communication skills. One person shares information, the other asks a connected question. The first person gives more detail, and the second person responds with interest and encouragement. Now, repeat the most useful lines. What's the meeting about? That sounds important. Have you been preparing for it? I hope it goes well. These expressions are useful in many situations. Someone may have an interview, an exam, a presentation, an appointment, or an important conversation. You can say, that sounds important, and then ask a relevant follow-up question. Let us practice creating your own follow-up questions. Imagine someone says, I'm going out of town this weekend. You could ask, where are you going? How long will you be there? Are you going for work or for fun? Imagine someone says, I started taking an English course last month. You could ask, how are you finding it? What are you learning at the moment? Do you enjoy the classes? Imagine someone says, I had a really difficult day yesterday. You could ask, what happened? Was everything okay? Do you want to talk about it? Now, it is your turn. I will give you a statement, and you will create a follow-up question. Here is the first statement. I'm thinking about changing jobs. Pause and ask a natural question. You may have said, why are you thinking about changing jobs? Or, what kind of job are you looking for? Both are excellent questions. Here is the next statement. I barely slept last night. Ask a follow-up question. You could say, what kept you awake? Or, are you feeling tired today? Here is one more. I'm meeting an old friend after work. Ask your question. You might say, how long has it been since you last saw each other? Or, where are you meeting? A strong English speaker does not always use difficult vocabulary. Strong speakers know how to respond appropriately. For example, when someone shares good news, your response should show happiness or interest. Imagine someone says, I finally passed my driving test. You could reply, that's fantastic. Congratulations. You could also say, that's great news. You must be relieved. The phrase, you must be relieved means that you believe the person probably feels relaxed and happy because a stressful situation has ended. When someone shares disappointing news, you need a different kind of response. Imagine someone says, I didn't get the job I applied for. You could say, I'm sorry to hear that. You might add, I know you were really hoping to get it. Another supportive response is, that's disappointing, but I'm sure another opportunity will come along. The expression come along means appear or become available. Repeat these emotional responses. That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's great news. You must be relieved. I'm sorry to hear that. I know you were really hoping to get it. I'm sure another opportunity will come along. Pay attention to your tone of voice. When you say, that's fantastic, Sound enthusiastic. When you say, "I'm sorry to hear that," use a softer and more sympathetic tone. Fluency is not only about choosing correct words, your voice should also match the meaning of the sentence. Let us practice with a few situations. I will share some news, and you will respond naturally. I've just been offered a promotion at work. You could say, "That's amazing. Congratulations." Or, "You must be really proud." Here is another situation. My flight was canceled, so I had to stay at the airport all night. You could respond, "That sounds exhausting." Or, "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." Here is another. I'm moving into my new apartment next week. You might say, "That's exciting. Are you looking forward to it?" One more situation. I lost my phone on the way home. You could say, "Oh no. Were you able to find it?" Or, "That's awful. Did you report it?" Now, let us move into a common real-life situation. Making small talk with someone you do not know well. Small talk is light conversation about safe and familiar topics. People often talk about the weather, work, travel, food, weekend plans, or something happening around them. Small talk may seem unimportant, but it often creates the beginning of a stronger social or professional relationship. Imagine you are waiting for a meeting to begin. Another person is standing nearby. You could say, "It looks like we're still waiting for a few people to arrive." The person might answer, "Yes, I think the meeting will start a little late." You could continue, "That seems to happen quite often here." The person may laugh and say, "It certainly does." You have now started a natural conversation by commenting on the shared situation. Here is another example. You are waiting in a long line at a coffee shop. You say, "It's unusually busy today, isn't it?" The other person replies, "Yes, I've never seen the line this long." You say, "I hope it moves quickly. I only have a few minutes before I need to get back to work." The person answers, "Same here. I thought I'd be in and out." The expression "in and out" means completing something quickly without staying for a long time. Repeat the conversation. "It's unusually busy today, isn't it? I've never seen the line this long. I hope it moves quickly. I only have a few minutes before I need to get back to work. I thought I'd be in and out." These sentences are especially useful because they sound natural but are not too personal. You are simply talking about what is happening around you. You can also begin small talk by giving a sincere compliment. You might say, "That's a nice jacket. The color really suits you." The other person may say, "Thank you. I bought it last week." You could continue with, "It looks great. Was it difficult to find?" However, I make sure your compliment is respectful and appropriate for the situation. Compliments about someone's work, idea, presentation, clothing, or helpful behavior are usually safe. For example, "You explained that really clearly. That was a very useful presentation." Or, "I appreciate how quickly you handled that problem." Listen and repeat. "You explained that really clearly. That was a very useful presentation. I appreciate how quickly you handled that problem. The color really suits you. That looks great." Try to sound sincere rather than overly excited. A calm and genuine compliment often sounds more natural than a dramatic one. Another powerful conversation skill is knowing how to keep talking when you need time to think. Advanced speakers do not always answer immediately. They use natural expressions to create a few extra seconds. For example, you can say, "That's an interesting question." You can also say, "Let me think about that for a moment." Or, "I've never really thought about it before." These expressions give you time, while also showing the other person that you are preparing an answer. Suppose someone asks, "What do you enjoy most about your work?" You may need a moment to think. You could say, "That's an interesting question. I would probably say I enjoy solving problems and working with different people." Suppose someone asks, "Would you ever consider living in another country?" You could reply, I've never really thought about it before, but I would certainly consider it if the right opportunity came along. Repeat these thinking expressions. That's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a moment. I've never really thought about it before. I would probably say, it depends on the situation. I'm not completely sure, but these phrases help you avoid long, uncomfortable silence. They also make your speech sound thoughtful and natural. Let us practice answering a few questions using these expressions. Here is the first question. What is one habit you would like to change? Begin with, let me think about that for a moment. Then give your answer. For example, let me think about that for a moment. I would like to stop checking my phone so often. Here is the next question. What makes a person a good friend? Begin with, I would probably say, you might answer, I would probably say, honesty, kindness, and the ability to listen. Here is another question. Would you prefer to work from home or in an office? Begin with, it depends on the situation, then explain your choice. When giving your opinion, it is helpful to explain your reason. Instead of saying, I prefer working from home, you can say, I prefer working from home because I can concentrate more easily and avoid spending time commuting. Instead of saying, I like living in a city, you can say, I enjoy living in a city because everything is nearby and there are more opportunities to meet people and try new things. A useful structure is, personally, I think, followed by your opinion. For example, personally, I think learning a language becomes easier when you use it every day. Another structure is, from my point of view. For example, from my point of view, confidence is just as important as grammar. You can also say, the way I see it. For example, the way I see it. Making mistakes is a necessary part of learning. Repeat these opinion phrases. Personally, I think. From my point of view, the way I see it, as far as I'm concerned, in my experience. Now, complete each phrase with your own idea. Personally, I think. From my point of view, in my experience. Speak in complete sentences and add a reason whenever possible. Now, I want you to imagine a real conversation. Someone asks, do you think social media helps people communicate better? You could say, that's an interesting question. Personally, I think social media makes communication faster, but not always better. It helps people stay in touch, especially when they live far apart. But online conversations can sometimes feel less personal. This is a strong answer, because it presents both sides of the idea. Repeat the answer in smaller sections. That's an interesting question. Personally, I think social media makes communication faster, but not always better. It helps people stay in touch. Online conversations can sometimes feel less personal. Now, give your own opinion. Do not worry if your answer is different. The purpose is to practice expressing a clear idea and supporting it with reasons. Before we continue, take a moment to notice what you have already practiced. You have learned how to open a conversation, answer common questions with more detail, ask follow-up questions, respond to good and bad news, make small talk, give respectful compliments, create thinking time, and express your opinion. These are not isolated phrases. They are conversation tools that you can combine in hundreds of real-life situations. For your final practice in this practice activity, imagine that you meet someone at a professional event. Begin the conversation by saying, Hi, I don't think we've met before. And say your name. Then ask, What brings you here today? Imagine the person says, I'm here to learn more about the industry and meet new people. Respond with, That sounds like a good reason to come. Have you attended an event like this before? Then imagine the person asks you the same question. Take your time and answer naturally. You might say, This is actually my first time. I was a little nervous about coming. But everyone seems very friendly. The other person may respond, I felt the same way when I arrived. You could continue. It's always difficult to walk into a room where you don't know anyone. The person might say, that's true, but once you start talking to someone, it becomes much easier. You can reply, exactly. I'm glad I introduced myself. Now, repeat the complete conversation in your own voice. Hi, I don't think we've met before. I'm Emma. What brings you here today? I'm here to learn more about the industry and meet new people. That sounds like a good reason to come. Have you attended an event like this before? This is actually my first time. I was a little nervous about coming, but everyone seems very friendly. I felt the same way when I arrived. Once you start talking to someone, it becomes much easier. Exactly. I'm glad I introduced myself. Practice this conversation one more time, but change the details. Use your real name. Choose a different type of event. It could be a class, a workshop, a conference, a community gathering, or a social event. Change your reason for being there and describe how you feel. This kind of flexible practice trains you to create English instead of only repeating it. That is how prepared sentences slowly become natural conversation. Now, let us continue with another essential area of real-life English. Handling everyday situations when you need help, information, or clarification. Many learners feel comfortable when they know exactly what another person will say, but real conversations are unpredictable. Someone may speak too quickly, use an unfamiliar expression, or give an answer that you did not expect. In those moments, you do not need to panic. You simply need a few polite phrases that help you control the conversation. Imagine that you are speaking with a colleague, and they explain a task very quickly. You understand the general idea, but you are not completely sure what you need to do first. Instead of pretending that everything is clear, you can say, sorry, could you go over that one more time? The expression, go over that, means explain or review something again. You could also say, just to make sure I understand, you'd like me to finish the report before I contact the client. Is that right? This is a very useful way to confirm instructions. Listen carefully. Sorry, could you go over that one more time? Just to make sure I understand. You'd like me to finish the report before I contact the client. Is that right? Now, repeat each sentence. Sorry, could you go over that one more time? Just to make sure I understand. You'd like me to finish the report before I contact the client. Is that right? These phrases sound professional because they show that you are paying attention and want to avoid mistakes. You can use similar language in many places. At a hotel, you might say, just to make sure I understand, breakfast is included in the price, correct? At a train station, you could ask, so this train goes directly to the city center, is that right? At a doctor's office, you might say, let me make sure I understood. I should take this medicine twice a day after meals, correct? Confirming information is not a sign of weak English. It is a sign of careful communication. Now, imagine that you did not hear one particular word. You do not need to ask the person to repeat the entire sentence. You can say, sorry, what was the last word? Or, did you say Tuesday or Thursday? If you understood most of the sentence, ask a specific question. This makes the conversation faster and easier for both people. Repeat these useful clarification phrases. What was the last word? Did you say Tuesday or Thursday? Do you mean this week or next week? Are you referring to the morning appointment? Could you explain what you mean by that? The final question is especially useful. When you hear the words clearly, but do not understand the meaning, suppose someone says, we may need to put the project on hold. You understand the words, but you are not sure what put the project on hold means. You could ask, could you explain what you mean by putting the project on hold? The person may respond, It means we might stop working on it temporarily until we have more information. Now, you understand both the expression and the situation. Let us practice. I will say a sentence that includes a phrase you may not know. Your job is to ask for clarification. We need to figure out a more practical solution. You could ask, what do you mean by a practical solution? Here is another. I think we should look into the problem before making a decision. You could say, could you explain what you mean by look into the problem? One more. The meeting has been pushed back until Friday. You might ask, does pushed back mean the meeting has been delayed? Now, let us move to asking for help politely. In real life, direct commands can sometimes sound rude, especially when speaking to strangers or colleagues. Instead of saying, help me with this, you can say, could you help me with this when you have a moment? Instead of saying, send me the file, you could say, would you mind sending me the file when you get a chance? These expressions are polite because they respect the other person's time. Repeat slowly. Could you help me with this when you have a moment? Would you mind sending me the file when you get a chance? Could I ask you for a quick favor? Would it be possible for you to check this? I'd really appreciate your help. Notice how these sentences soften the request, without making it unclear. Imagine that you are in a supermarket and cannot find a product. You approach an employee and say, excuse me, could you tell me where I can find the cooking oil? The employee may answer, it's in aisle 6, near the rice and pasta. You can respond, great, thank you, I appreciate it. This is a simple exchange, but it includes a polite opening, a clear request, and a friendly closing. Listen and repeat. Excuse me, could you tell me where I can find the cooking oil? It's in aisle 6, near the rice and pasta. Great, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, change the product. Ask where you can find coffee, batteries, toothpaste, or bottled water. Speak aloud using the same structure. At a restaurant, you may need to make a request. You could say, excuse me, could we have some more water? Please? If something is wrong with your order, you can be polite but clear. For example, I'm sorry, but I ordered the grilled chicken, and I think this is the pasta. You can continue. Could you please check the order for me? There is no need to sound angry, calm. Specific language usually solves the problem more effectively. Repeat the restaurant phrases, could we have some more water, please? I'm sorry, but I ordered the grilled chicken. I think this may be the wrong order. Could you please check it for me? Would it be possible to replace this? Practice saying them with a calm and respectful tone. Now, imagine you are checking into a hotel. The receptionist says, your room is on the 5th floor, breakfast is served from 7 until 10, and checkout is at 11. You want to know whether the hotel has internet access. You could ask, is Wi-Fi included with the room? You might also ask, could you tell me the Wi-Fi password? If you need a later checkout, you could say, would it be possible to check out a little later tomorrow? Here is the conversation. Good evening. I have a reservation under the name Emma Taylor. Certainly. May I see your identification, please? Of course. Here you are. Thank you. Your room is on the 5th floor, and checkout is at 11. Would it be possible to check out a little later tomorrow? We may be able to extend it until noon. That would be very helpful. Thank you. Repeat the most useful lines. I have a reservation under the name. Here you are. Would it be possible to check out a little later? That would be very helpful. Now, replace the name with your own name and practice the exchange again. One difficulty in real conversations is that people do not always give the answer you expect. Imagine that you ask, would it be possible to check out at 1? The receptionist might say, I'm afraid we can only offer a late checkout until noon. The expression, I'm afraid, is often used. To introduce disappointing information politely, it does not always mean that the speaker is frightened. You may respond, I understand, noon should be fine. You could also say, That's okay. Thank you for checking. These calm responses help keep the interaction friendly. Repeat them. I understand. Noon should be fine. That's okay. Thank you for checking. No problem. I appreciate your help. I understand that may not be possible. Let us practice responding when someone cannot give you exactly what you requested. Imagine you ask a coworker, "Could you finish this by the end of the day?" They say, "I'm afraid I won't be able to complete it until tomorrow morning." You could respond, "All right, tomorrow morning will work, but please send it as early as you can." This response is flexible, but it also communicates what you need. Imagine you call a restaurant and ask for a table at 7. The employee says, "I'm sorry, but we do not have anything available until 8:30. You could say, "8:30 is a little late for us. Do you have anything available earlier in the evening?" If the answer is no, you might respond, "I understand. I'll check with the others and call back." Repeat these phrases. Tomorrow morning will work. Please send it as early as you can. Do you have anything available earlier? I'll check with the others and call back. These expressions help you negotiate politely, rather than immediately accepting or rejecting an option. Now, let us focus on making plans with other people. This is one of the most common areas of daily conversation. You may be arranging lunch, a meeting, a phone call, or a weekend activity. A useful opening is, "Are you free sometime this week?" You can also say, "Would you like to meet for coffee?" Or, "Do you have any plans on Saturday?" Imagine this conversation. "Are you free sometime this week?" "I think so. What did you have in mind?" "I thought we could meet for coffee and catch up." "That sounds good. How about Thursday afternoon?" "Thursday works for me. Shall we meet around 3? 3 is perfect. Where should we meet?" "How about the cafe near the library?" "Great. I'll see you there." The expression, "What did you have in mind?" means, "What were you thinking of doing?" The phrase catch up means, talk with someone you have not seen recently and share news about your lives. Repeat these lines. What did you have in mind? I thought we could meet for coffee and catch up. How about Thursday afternoon? Thursday works for me. Shall we meet around 3? I'll see you there. Now, practice changing the details. Invite someone to lunch on Friday. Suggest a time. Suggest a place. Imagine the person is busy at your first suggested time. You might say, "Would 12:30 work for you?" The person says, "I have a meeting then. Could we make it 1:30 instead?" You respond, "Yes, 1:30 works perfectly." The expression, "Could we make it 1:30 instead?" is useful when changing an arranged time. You can also say, "Could we move it to 1:30?" Or, "Would 1:30 be more convenient?" Repeat these phrases. Could we make it 1:30 instead? Could we move it to 1:30? Would 1:30 be more convenient? That time works better for me. Sometimes you need to cancel or change plans. This can feel uncomfortable, but polite language makes it easier. You could say, "I'm really sorry, but something has come up, and I won't be able to meet this evening." The phrase, "something has come up," means, an unexpected situation has happened. You can continue. Could we reschedule for another day? Listen to the complete message. I'm really sorry, but something has come up, and I won't be able to meet this evening. Could we reschedule for another day? Now, repeat it. I'm really sorry, but something has come up. I won't be able to meet this evening. Could we reschedule for another day? If you want to sound especially considerate, offer a new time. For example, would Friday afternoon work instead? This shows that you still want to meet. You might say, I apologize for the late notice. Would Friday afternoon work instead? The expression late notice means you are informing the person shortly before the planned event. Now, practice creating your own cancellation message. Imagine you plan to meet a friend tomorrow morning, but you now have an urgent appointment. Begin with an apology. Explain briefly. Suggest another time. You could say, I'm sorry for the late notice, but I have an urgent appointment tomorrow morning. Could we meet in the afternoon instead? Now, create your own version aloud. Let us continue with phone conversations. Speaking on the phone can be more difficult because you cannot see the other person's facial expressions or gestures. It is important to speak clearly and confirm details. When answering a professional phone call, you might say, "Good morning. This is Emma speaking. How may I help you?" In a less formal situation, you can simply say, "Hello, Emma speaking." If you are calling someone, you can say, "Hello, this is Emma. I'm calling about the appointment scheduled for Tuesday." You can also say, "I'm calling to ask whether the position is still available." The structure "I'm calling about" introduces the topic. The structure "I'm calling to" introduces your purpose. Repeat these opening phrases. This is Emma speaking. How may I help you? I'm calling about the appointment scheduled for Tuesday. I'm calling to ask whether the position is still available. Could I speak to Mr. Wilson, please? May I ask who's calling? Imagine that the person you want is unavailable. The receptionist may say, "I'm afraid he's in a meeting at the moment. Would you like to leave a message?" You can say, "Yes, please. Could you ask him to call me back when he's available?" You may need to provide your number. Say each group of numbers clearly, and pause slightly between them. Here is the conversation. Could I speak to Mr. Wilson, please? I'm afraid he's in a meeting at the moment. Would you like to leave a message? Yes, please. Could you ask him to call me back when he's available? Certainly. May I have your phone number? Yes, it's... Thank you. I'll pass on the message. Repeat the final phrase. I'll pass on the message. This means the person will give your message to the other person. You can respond, "Thank you. I appreciate your help." Poor phone connections are common. You may say, "I'm sorry. The line is breaking up." This means the sound is becoming unclear or interrupted. You can also say, "I can barely hear you," or, "Could you speak a little louder?" If the call disconnects and you call again, you can say, "Sorry, we got cut off." Repeat, "The line is breaking up." "I can barely hear you." "Could you speak a little louder?" "Sorry, we got cut off." Could you repeat the last part? These expressions can reduce stress during difficult calls. Now, let us practice a complete phone situation. You are calling a clinic to change an appointment. You say, "Hello, this is Emma Carter. I'm calling about my appointment on Wednesday morning." The receptionist says, "How can I help you?" You reply, "I'm afraid I won't be able to come at that time. Would it be possible to move the appointment to Thursday afternoon?" The receptionist checks and says, "We have an opening at 3:30. You answer, 3:30 would be perfect, thank you." Repeat the important lines. I'm calling about my appointment. I won't be able to come at that time. Would it be possible to move the appointment? Do you have anything available on Thursday afternoon? 3:30 would be perfect. Now, create your own phone conversation. Change the appointment to a job interview, a dental visit, a meeting, or a delivery. Introduce yourself. Explain why you are calling. Ask for a change, and confirm the new details. Speak slowly but naturally. Try not to stop after every word. Another important real-life skill is dealing with misunderstandings. Sometimes you may say something, and the other person understands a different meaning. In that situation, you can say, "That's not quite what I meant." You can then explain your idea again. For example, "That's not quite what I meant. I wasn't saying the plan was bad. I was only suggesting that we might need more time." Repeat, "That's not quite what I meant. Let me put it another way. What I meant was, I may not have explained that clearly. There seems to have been a misunderstanding." These phrases allow you to correct the conversation without blaming anyone. Imagine you say, "I don't think we should start the project yet." Your colleague responds, "So you don't support the project?" You can clarify by saying, That's not quite what I meant. I support the project, but I think we need to prepare more carefully before we begin. This answer corrects the misunderstanding and explains your true opinion. Now, practice with another example. You tell a friend, I may not come to the party. Your friend says, you don't want to come? You respond, it's not that I don't want to come. I may have to work late, so I'm not sure whether I'll be free. The phrase, it's not that, is useful. When correcting an assumption, repeat the structure, it's not that I don't want to come. It's just that I may have to work late. I'm not saying the idea is impossible. I'm saying we need to think about it more carefully. These sentence patterns help you express a more precise meaning. Let us continue with a longer practice situation that combines several of the skills you have learned. Imagine that you are organizing a meeting with a colleague. You begin by saying, Hi, do you have a minute? The colleague says, Sure, what's up? You say, I wanted to ask about the client meeting next week. Do we know what time it is? The colleague answers, I believe it's at 10 on Wednesday. You are not completely sure, so you say, Did you say 10 on Wednesday? The colleague replies, Actually, let me check. Sorry, I was mistaken. It's at 11. You respond, Thanks for checking. Just to make sure I understand, the meeting starts at 11, and we need to arrive by 10:30. Is that right? The colleague says, Yes, exactly. You continue. Would you mind sending me the latest version of the presentation when you have a moment? The colleague replies, Of course, I'll send it this afternoon. You say, I'd really appreciate that. I want to go over it before tomorrow. The colleague then says, By the way, we may need to change one of the slides. You ask, Could you explain what needs to be changed? The colleague explains, The sales figures have been updated, so we need to replace the old numbers. You reply, That makes sense. Would you like me to update the slide? The colleague says, That would be great, but I'm afraid I won't be able to send you the new numbers until later today. You respond, No problem. Send them whenever they're ready, and I'll update the slide first thing tomorrow morning. Now, repeat the conversation in smaller sections. Do you have a minute? I wanted to ask about the client meeting. Did you say 10 on Wednesday? Just to make sure I understand, would you mind sending me the latest version? Could you explain what needs to be changed? Would you like me to update the slide? Send them whenever they're ready. I'll update it first thing tomorrow morning. The expression first thing tomorrow morning means at the beginning of the morning, before doing other tasks. It is a very useful expression in work and daily life. You might say, I'll call the bank first thing tomorrow morning. I'll deal with that first thing on Monday. Now, create your own version of this situation. Change the client meeting to another event. It could be a class presentation, a family gathering, a doctor's appointment, or a travel plan. Ask for information, confirm the details, make one polite request, and respond to an unexpected change. This kind of flexible speaking practice prepares you for conversations that do not follow a memorized script. Remember that successful communication does not require perfect English. It requires the ability to listen, ask questions, clarify meaning, make polite requests, and respond calmly when the situation changes. Each time you use one of these phrases in a real conversation, it becomes easier to use again. With regular practice, you will stop searching for every word and begin responding more naturally. Now, let us practice another major area of real-life English, talking about daily problems, explaining what happened, and finding practical solutions. In real conversations, people often describe delays, mistakes, confusion, unexpected changes, and small frustrations. To communicate clearly, you need more than basic vocabulary. You need to explain the sequence of events, describe the result, and say what you plan to do next. Imagine that you arrive late for work. Your manager asks, "Is everything all right?" You're usually here earlier. You could say, "Yes, everything is fine. I'm sorry I'm late. There was a major traffic jam on the way here, and the bus barely moved for almost 30 minutes." You might continue, "I left home at my usual time, but the journey took much longer than expected." Notice the useful structure. First, you apologize. Then, you explain the cause. Finally, you add a detail. Listen again. "I'm sorry I'm late. There was a major traffic jam on the way here. The bus barely moved for almost 30 minutes. I left home at my usual time, but the journey took much longer than expected." Now, repeat each sentence slowly and clearly. "I'm sorry I'm late. There was a major traffic jam. The bus barely moved. The journey took much longer than expected." You can use much longer than expected whenever something requires more time than you thought it would. For example, "The meeting lasted much longer than expected," or "The repair took much longer than expected." Imagine that your manager responds, "Thanks for letting me know. Were you able to contact the team?" You could say, "Yes, I sent them a message as soon as I realized I was going to be late." The expression, "as soon as I realized," helps explain the timing of your action. You could also say, "I tried calling, but no one answered, so I sent a message instead." Repeat these useful sentences. "I sent them a message as soon as I realized I was going to be late." "I tried calling, but no one answered. I sent a message instead." These sentences are useful because they explain both the problem and the action you took. Now, think about a time when something took longer than expected. It could be a journey, an appointment, an assignment, a shopping trip, or a phone call. Complete this sentence aloud. "I expected it to take about, but it ended up taking." For example, "I expected the appointment to take about 20 minutes, but it ended up taking nearly 2 hours." The expression "ended up" is extremely common in natural English. It describes the final result, especially when the result was not originally planned. You might say, "We planned to eat at home, but we ended up going to a restaurant." You could say, "I only wanted to buy one thing, but I ended up spending much more than I expected." You might also say, "I took the wrong train and ended up on the other side of the city." Repeat these examples. "We ended up going to a restaurant." "I ended up spending much more than I expected." "I ended up on the other side of the city." Now, create one sentence about your own life using "ended up." Try to describe a surprising or unplanned result. Let us practice describing a problem at home. Imagine that your internet suddenly stops working while you are attending an online meeting. You may tell the other person later, "I'm sorry I disappeared from the call. My internet connection suddenly went down." The expression "went down" means it stopped working. You might continue, "I tried reconnecting several times, but nothing worked." The other person may ask, "Is it working now?" You could answer, "Yes, it came back after about 10 minutes." Or, "Not yet. I contacted the service provider, and they said there may be a problem in the area." You could also say, "I'm using my phone's internet connection for the moment." Listen and repeat. "My internet connection suddenly went down. I tried reconnecting several times. Nothing worked. It came back after about 10 minutes. There may be a problem in the area. I'm using my phone's internet connection for the moment." The phrase "for the moment" means temporarily or for now. You can say, "I'm staying with a friend for the moment," or "We're using a smaller office for the moment." It suggests that the situation may change later. Now, imagine another household problem. Your washing machine stops in the middle of a cycle. You call a repair company and say, "Hello, I'm calling because my washing machine has stopped working." The employee asks,
"Could you describe the problem?"
You reply, "It starts normally, but after a few minutes, it makes a strange noise and stops." The employee may ask, Have you noticed any water leaking? You answer, no. I haven't seen any water on the floor, but the clothes are still completely wet. The employee says, we can send someone tomorrow afternoon. You respond, that would be helpful. Do you know approximately what time they'll arrive? Repeat the key sentences. My washing machine has stopped working. It makes a strange noise and stops. I haven't noticed any water leaking. Do you know approximately what time they'll arrive? These expressions help you describe a technical problem without needing highly specialized vocabulary. Now, create another repair conversation. Choose a broken refrigerator, air conditioner, laptop, light, or kitchen appliance. Describe what normally happens, explain what is happening now, and ask when someone can inspect it. For example, the refrigerator is still running, but it is no longer keeping the food cold. Let us move into returning an item to a store. Imagine you bought a pair of headphones, but they do not work properly. You approach the customer service desk and say, hi, I bought these headphones here a few days ago, but there seems to be a problem with them. The employee asks, what seems to be the issue? You reply, the sound keeps cutting out, especially in the left side. The phrase keeps cutting out means the sound repeatedly stops and returns. The employee may ask, do you have the receipt? You say, yes, I have it right here. The employee asks, would you like a replacement or a refund? You respond, I'd prefer a replacement if possible. Listen to the exchange. There seems to be a problem with these headphones. The sound keeps cutting out. Do you have the receipt? I have it right here. Would you like a replacement or a refund? I'd prefer a replacement if possible. Repeat the phrases aloud. Pay attention to I'd prefer, which is a polite way to express your choice. I'd prefer a replacement. I'd prefer a refund. I'd prefer to exchange it for another size. I'd prefer to speak to someone about the problem. Suppose the employee says, we do not have the same model in stock at the moment. You could ask, do you know when it will be available again? If they are unsure, you may say, in that case, I think I'll take a refund. The phrase, in that case, means, because of the information you have just received, repeat, do you know when it will be available again? In that case, I think I'll take a refund. Could I exchange it for a different model? Would I need to pay the difference? These phrases are helpful when discussing alternatives. Now, practice a complete return conversation in your own words. Choose an item such as a jacket, phone charger, coffee machine, bag, or pair of shoes. Explain when you bought it. Describe the problem, say whether you have the receipt, and request either an exchange, replacement, or refund. Real-life conversations also involve giving explanations when you make a mistake. The most effective response usually includes 3 things: accepting responsibility, briefly explaining what happened, and offering a solution. Imagine that you forgot to send an important email. You could say, I apologize. I should have sent the email yesterday, but it completely slipped my mind. The expression slipped my mind means you forgot something unintentionally. You should then explain what you will do. I've prepared it now, and I'll send it within the next few minutes. This response is stronger than only saying, I forgot, because you are taking action. You might add, I'll also set a reminder so it doesn't happen again. Repeat these sentences. It completely slipped my mind. I should have sent it yesterday. I've prepared it now. I'll send it within the next few minutes. I'll set a reminder so it doesn't happen again. Now, imagine that you misunderstand an instruction and complete the wrong task. You could say, I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you wanted me to do. You might continue, I thought you wanted a full report, but I now understand that you only needed a brief summary. Then offer a solution. I'll correct it and send the shorter version this afternoon. Listen carefully. I misunderstood what you wanted me to do. I thought you wanted a full report, I now understand that you only needed a brief summary. I'll correct it and send the shorter version this afternoon. This is professional language because it is direct and solution-focused. It does not include a long excuse. It shows that you understand the mistake and know how to fix it. Let us practice. Imagine that you missed an appointment because you wrote down the wrong time. You could say, "I'm very sorry I missed the appointment. I mistakenly wrote down 3 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock. I understand that this caused inconvenience. Could we arrange another time?" Repeat the response, and then create your own version. Now, imagine that you sent a message to the wrong person. You might say, "I'm sorry. That message was not intended for you. I sent it to the wrong contact by mistake. Please disregard it." The word disregard means ignore. In a less formal situation, you could say, "Sorry, that message was meant for someone else. Please ignore it." Repeat both versions. That message was not intended for you. Please disregard it. That message was meant for someone else. Please ignore it. Knowing both formal and informal language helps you adjust your English to the situation. Now, let us focus on explaining changes in plans. Imagine that your family planned to have dinner outside, but heavy rain begins. You might say, "It looks like the weather is getting worse. Maybe we should change our plans and stay home." Someone may respond, "I agree. There's no point going out if the roads are going to be difficult." The expression "there's no point" means there is no useful reason to do something. For example, "There's no point waiting here if the store is closed." Or, "There's no point arguing about something we cannot change." Repeat, "There's no point going out in this weather. There's no point waiting any longer. There's no point worrying about it now. There's no point making a decision before we have all the information." Now, imagine your travel plans change. You plan to take an early train, but it is canceled. You tell your companion, "The early train has been canceled, so we'll need to take the next one." They ask, "How long will we have to wait?" You answer, "About an hour, unless we take the bus instead." The word "unless" introduces an exception. It means except if. For example, "We'll have to wait an hour unless we take the bus." You might say, "I won't be able to finish today unless someone helps me." Or, "The picnic will go ahead unless it rains." Repeat the examples. "We'll have to wait unless we take the bus." "I won't finish today unless someone helps me." The event will go ahead unless the weather gets worse. Now create one sentence using unless. Suppose your companion asks, "Which option do you think is better?" You could answer, "The bus may be slightly faster, but it will probably be less comfortable. Personally, I'd rather wait for the train." The structure, "I'd rather" means, "I would prefer to." Repeat, "I'd rather wait for the train." "I'd rather leave early." "I'd rather not rush." "I'd rather speak to them in person." Would you rather take the bus or wait for the train? Now, answer these questions aloud. Would you rather work early in the morning or late at night? Would you rather live in a busy city or a quiet town? Would you rather travel alone or with other people? Give a reason after each answer. For example, "I'd rather travel with other people," because shared experiences are usually more enjoyable. Another common situation is discussing money and shared expenses. Imagine that you have dinner with friends. When the bill arrives, someone asks, "Should we split the bill?" This means everyone pays an equal share. Another person may say, "I only had a drink, so would it be okay if I paid separately?" You could respond, "Of course. We can each pay for what we ordered." Repeat the phrases, "Should we split the bill?" "Would it be okay if I paid separately?" "We can each pay for what we ordered." I'll cover this one. You can get the next one. The phrase "I'll cover this one" means, "I will pay for this." It is common among friends or colleagues. Someone may answer, "Are you sure?" You could say, "Yes, it's my treat." The phrase, "it's my treat," means you are happily paying for everyone. Listen to the short conversation. Should we split the bill? Actually, I'll cover this one. Are you sure? Yes, it's my treat. That's very kind of you. I'll get the next one. Now, practice the exchange, then change the situation. Imagine you are paying for coffee, lunch, or movie tickets. Decide whether you want to split the cost, pay separately, or pay for the other person. Let us now practice describing an uncomfortable social situation. Imagine that someone invites you to an event, but you do not want to attend. You want to decline without sounding rude. You could say, "Thank you for inviting me. I'd love to come, but unfortunately, I already have plans that evening." You could add, "I hope you all have a wonderful time." If you are not available, but would like to meet another day, say, "I won't be able to make it on Saturday, but perhaps we could meet sometime next week." The phrase, "I won't be able to make it," is a natural way to say, "You cannot attend." Repeat, "Thank you for inviting me. I'd love to come, but I already have plans. I won't be able to make it. Perhaps we could meet sometime next week. I hope you have a wonderful time." Now, imagine that you are uncertain. You might say, "I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know by tomorrow." This is better than making a promise you may not be able to keep. You can also say, "I may be able to come, but it depends on what time I finish work." Repeat, "I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know by tomorrow. I may be able to come. It depends on what time I finish work. Can I confirm with you later?" Now, practice responding to 3 invitations. The first invitation is, "Would you like to join us for dinner on Friday?" Accept politely and ask what time. You could say, "I'd love to. What time are you planning to meet?" The second invitation is, "We're having a small party on Sunday. Would you like to come?" Decline politely and offer another possibility. The third invitation is, "Would you like to attend a workshop with me next month?" Say that you are interested but need time to check your schedule. Let us continue with a detailed real-life situation. Imagine that you are traveling to another city for an important appointment. You arrive at the train station and discover that your train has been delayed by 90 minutes. You approach the information desk and say, "Excuse me, could you tell me why the 11 o'clock train has been delayed?" The employee replies, "There has been a technical problem, and we do not yet know exactly when the train will leave." You ask, "Is there another train I could take?" The employee says, "There is one leaving from platform 5 in 20 minutes, but you would need to change trains halfway." You respond, "How much later would I arrive?" The employee checks and says, "You would probably arrive about 40 minutes later than originally planned." You say, "That would still be better than waiting here. Would my current ticket be valid on that train?" The employee answers, "Yes, you can use the same ticket." You say, "Great. Could you tell me where I need to change?" The employee replies, "You'll need to change at Greenfield Station and take the train from platform 2. You confirm, "Just to make sure I understand, I take the train from platform 5, get off at Greenfield, and then continue from platform 2. Is that correct?" The employee says, "Yes, that's correct." You thank the employee and call the person you are meeting. You say, "Hi, I wanted to let you know that my train has been delayed because of a technical problem. I've found an alternative route, but I'll probably arrive around 40 minutes late. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience." The person responds, "Thanks for letting me know. Don't worry, we can move the appointment back by an hour." You reply, "I really appreciate your flexibility. I'll call you again if there are any further delays." Now, repeat the most useful lines. "Could you tell me why the train has been delayed? Is there another train I could take? How much later would I arrive? Would my current ticket be valid? Could you tell me where I need to change? Just to make sure I understand, I wanted to let you know that my train has been delayed. I've found an alternative route. I'll probably arrive around 40 minutes late. I appreciate your flexibility. Now, create your own version of this situation. Imagine a bus is canceled, a flight is delayed, or a road is closed. Ask for information, compare your options. Confirm the new instructions, and inform someone that you will arrive late. Try to speak for at least 1 full minute without stopping. The purpose of this practice is not to memorize every sentence exactly. It is to become familiar with useful patterns. When a problem occurs, explain what happened. When you need information, ask a clear question. When plans change, discuss the available options. When you make a mistake, accept responsibility and offer a solution. When someone helps you, express appreciation. These habits make your English sound confident, cooperative, and natural. Before continuing, create one short story about an unexpected problem you experienced. Begin with, "A few days ago, I was supposed to," then explain what went wrong. Use but, so, because, as soon as, and ended up. For example, "A few days ago, I was supposed to meet a friend for lunch, but my bus broke down. I called her as soon as I realized I would be late. So we changed the time. I ended up arriving almost an hour later than planned." Now, tell your own story. Do not try to make it perfect. Focus on keeping the story moving. Explain the original plan, the unexpected problem, your response, and the final result. This is one of the best ways to train yourself for real conversation, because people often connect by sharing small stories from their everyday lives. Now, let us continue with another important area of real-life English: expressing feelings, discussing personal experiences, and responding with empathy. Daily conversation is not only about exchanging information. People also talk about stress, excitement, disappointment, uncertainty, confidence, and change. When you can describe these feelings naturally, your conversations become deeper and more meaningful. Imagine that a friend asks, "How have you been lately?" A basic answer would be, "I've been fine," but a more natural answer gives a little more detail. You could say, "I've been doing well overall, although work has been a little stressful recently." You could also say, "I've been quite busy, but I'm trying to make more time for myself." These responses are honest without becoming too personal. Listen and repeat. "I've been doing well overall. Work has been a little stressful recently. I've been quite busy. I'm trying to make more time for myself." Notice the expression overall. It means when you consider the whole situation, you might say, "The trip was enjoyable overall, although we had a few problems." Or, "I'm satisfied with the result overall." Now, create your own answer to the question, "How have you been lately?" Try to include one positive detail and one challenge. For example, "I've been feeling more confident lately, although I still get nervous in unfamiliar situations." Speak your answer aloud and make it sound like a real conversation. When someone shares a difficulty, a good response often begins by acknowledging the feeling. Imagine your friend says, "I've been under a lot of pressure at work." You could respond, "That sounds really difficult." You may also say, "I can understand why you're feeling stressed." Then you can ask, "Is there anything in particular that has been causing the pressure?" Listen to the complete exchange. "I've been under a lot of pressure at work." "That sounds really difficult. Is there anything in particular that has been causing the pressure?" "We have several deadlines coming up, and 2 members of the team are away. That must be a lot to deal with." Repeat the supportive phrases. "That sounds really difficult. I can understand why you feel that way. That must be a lot to deal with. I'm sorry you're going through that. Do you want to talk about it?" These responses show empathy. You are not immediately trying to solve the problem. You are first showing that you understand the person's feelings. Sometimes people want advice, but sometimes they only want someone to listen. Before giving advice, you can ask, "Would you like my opinion?" Or, "Do you want some advice?" Or, "Do you just need to talk?" This question is thoughtful because it allows the other person to choose what kind of support they need. Repeat, "Would you like my opinion?" "Do you want some advice?" "Do you just need someone to listen?" "I'm here if you want to talk." Take your time. Now, imagine that your friend says, "I'm worried about an interview next week." You could say, "That's understandable. Interviews can be stressful." Then you might ask, "Have you had time to prepare?" If your friend wants advice, you could say, "It might help to practice answering common questions aloud." Notice that "it might help to" is a gentle way to offer a suggestion. Repeat these advice structures. It might help to prepare a few examples. You could try practicing with a friend. Have you considered writing down your main points? One thing that might help is taking a short break. You may find it useful to plan ahead. These expressions sound softer than direct commands. Instead of saying, "You should relax," which may sound too simple or dismissive, you can say, "It might help to take a little time to relax before the interview." The longer version sounds more considerate. Let us practice giving gentle advice. Imagine someone says, "I keep forgetting new English words." You might respond, "It may help to use each new word in a personal sentence." Another person says, "I have trouble waking up early." You could say, "You could try going to bed at the same time every night." Someone says, "I feel nervous when speaking in meetings." You might say, "Have you considered preparing 1 or 2 comments before the meeting begins?" Now, create one piece of advice for each situation. "I spend too much time on my phone." "I often leave important tasks until the last minute." "I find it difficult to speak to new people." Use one of the gentle structures and explain your suggestion briefly. People also talk about positive emotions. Imagine someone says, "I've just finished a difficult project." You could respond, "You must be relieved." The person may say, "I really am. It took almost 3 months." You might continue, "You should be proud of yourself. That sounds like a major achievement." Repeat, "You must be relieved." "You should be proud of yourself. That sounds like a major achievement." All your hard work has paid off. The expression "paid off" means that effort has produced a good result. For example, "The extra practice paid off, and I passed the exam." Now, imagine someone says, "I gave my first presentation in English, and it went better than I expected." You could say, "That's wonderful. Your practice clearly paid off." You may ask, "What part of the presentation were you most nervous about?" This question encourages the person to share more about the experience. Listen to the conversation. "I gave my first presentation in English today." "How did it go?" "It went better than I expected." "That's wonderful. Your practice clearly paid off." "I was nervous at the beginning, but I became more comfortable after the first few minutes." That often happens. Starting is usually the hardest part. Repeat the useful lines. "It went better than I expected." "I was nervous at the beginning." "I became more comfortable after the first few minutes." Starting is usually the hardest part. Now, think of something you completed successfully. It could be a project, an exam, a difficult conversation, a journey, or a personal goal. Describe how you felt before, during, and after the experience. You might say, "Before the interview, I felt extremely nervous. During the first few questions, I struggled to relax. After a while, however, I became more confident." The phrase "after a while" means after some time has passed, you can say, "The work felt difficult at first, but it became easier after a while." You might also say, "I did not enjoy living there at first, but after a while, I began to feel at home." Repeat, "It felt difficult at first." It became easier after a while. I began to feel more comfortable. Eventually, I started to enjoy it. The word eventually means in the end, especially after a period of time or difficulty. Now practice telling a short story of personal improvement. Begin with, at first, I found it difficult to, then continue with, after a while, and finish with, eventually. For example, at first, I found it difficult to speak English on the phone. After a while, I learned a few useful phrases. Eventually, I became much more comfortable. Let us now discuss expressing uncertainty. In real life, you will not always have a definite answer. You may be unsure about a plan, an opinion, or what will happen next. Instead of always saying, I don't know, you can use more natural expressions such as, I'm not entirely sure, it's hard to say, or, I haven't made up my mind yet. Listen and repeat. I'm not entirely sure. It's hard to say. I haven't made up my mind yet. I'm still thinking about it. I need a little more time to decide. I could go either way. The phrase, I could go either way, means both options seem possible or acceptable. Imagine someone asks, would you rather have dinner at home or go out? You could say, I could go either way. What would you prefer? This answer shows flexibility. Suppose someone asks, are you going to apply for the new position? You might say, I haven't made up my mind yet. It seems like a good opportunity, but it would also involve more responsibility. This is a thoughtful answer, because you explain both sides of the decision. Repeat, I haven't made up my mind yet. It seems like a good opportunity. It would involve more responsibility. I'm still weighing the advantages and disadvantages. The phrase, weighing the advantages and disadvantages, means carefully comparing the positive and negative sides. Now, answer these questions using uncertainty language. Would you ever start your own business? Would you like to move to another city? Do you think you will still be doing the same work 5 years from now? Begin with a phrase such as, it's hard to say, and then explain your thoughts. Another important skill is disagreeing politely. In natural conversation, people do not always have the same opinion. You can disagree without creating conflict. Instead of saying, you're wrong, you can say, I see your point, but I look at it a little differently. You could also say, I understand what you mean, although I'm not sure I completely agree. Repeat, I see your point. I look at it a little differently. I understand what you mean. I'm not sure I completely agree. That may be true in some situations, but I can see both sides. Imagine someone says, working from home is always better than working in an office. You could respond, I understand why many people prefer it, but I'm not sure it is always better. Some people find it easier to communicate and stay motivated in an office. This response disagrees with the statement while still respecting the other person. Suppose someone says, technology makes people less social. You might say, I can see why you feel that way, but I think it depends on how people use technology. It can reduce face-to-face interaction, but it can also help people stay connected across long distances. Now practice disagreeing politely. I will give you an opinion, and you will respond, it is better to work alone than in a team. Begin with, I see your point, but here is another. People should never change careers after the age of 40. Begin with, I'm not sure I completely agree. One more. Online learning is more effective than classroom learning. Begin with, I think it depends. When discussing differences of opinion, you may also want to find common ground. Common ground is an idea that both people agree about. You could say, we may disagree about the best method, but I think we both agree that something needs to change. You can also say, at least we agree on the main goal. Repeat, we may disagree about the method. We both agree that something needs to change. At least we agree on the main goal. I think we have more in common than it may seem. Now, imagine a workplace discussion. One colleague wants to finish a task quickly, while another wants to spend more time checking every detail. You might say, I understand both concerns. We need to meet the deadline, but we also need to avoid careless mistakes. Perhaps we could complete the main work today and review the details tomorrow morning. This response does not simply choose one side. It identifies the needs of both people and suggests a compromise. The word compromise means an agreement in which each side accepts something less than its original preference. Repeat. I understand both concerns. We need to meet the deadline. We also need to avoid careless mistakes. Perhaps we could find a compromise. What if we finish the main work today and review it tomorrow? Let us practice suggesting compromises. Imagine two friends are deciding where to eat. One wants a quiet restaurant, while the other wants a lively place. You could say, what if we choose somewhere that is lively but not too crowded? Another situation, one person wants to leave early for a trip, while the other wants to sleep longer. You might say, how about leaving at 9? That would give us enough time without having to wake up too early. Repeat these compromise structures. What if we? How about? Perhaps we could. Would it work if we? Why don't we meet in the middle? The expression meet in the middle means each side changes its position slightly to reach an agreement. Now, let us move to talking about past experiences. Real conversations often include questions such as, have you ever? Or, what was it like? Imagine someone asks, have you ever traveled alone? You could answer, yes, I have. I traveled alone for the first time a few years ago, and it was both exciting and challenging. The person may ask, what was the most difficult part? You could say, the most difficult part was making all the decisions by myself. At the same time, I enjoyed the freedom of being able to change my plans whenever I wanted. Repeat. I traveled alone for the first time a few years ago. It was both exciting and challenging. The most difficult part was making all the decisions by myself. I enjoyed the freedom of changing my plans. A useful way to organize a personal experience is to describe your expectation, the reality, and what you learned. For example, before the trip, I expected to feel lonely. In reality, I met many people along the way. The experience taught me that I am more independent than I thought. Repeat the pattern. Before the experience, I expected. In reality, the experience taught me. Now, use this structure to describe starting a new job, moving to a new home, taking a course, attending an event, or trying a new activity. Let us practice with a work experience. Before I started my new job, I expected the first few weeks to be very stressful. In reality, my coworkers were helpful, and I gradually became comfortable. The experience taught me that asking questions is better than pretending to understand everything. Now, tell your own short story using the same 3 steps. Try to speak for at least 45 seconds. Explain what you expected, what actually happened, and what you learned. People also talk about regrets and lessons from the past. You may say, looking back, I wish I had prepared more carefully. The expression looking back means thinking about a past event from your present perspective. You might also say, if I could do it again, I would handle the situation differently. Repeat. Looking back, I wish I had prepared more carefully. If I could do it again, I would handle it differently. At the time, I didn't realize how important it was. I learned a valuable lesson from the experience. Imagine you missed an opportunity because you were afraid of making a mistake. You could say, looking back, I wish I had taken the opportunity. At the time, I was worried that I wasn't ready. But now, I realize that I could have learned along the way. The expression learned along the way means gained knowledge during the experience rather than before it. Now, Create one sentence about something you would do differently. It does not need to be a serious regret. You could talk about studying, traveling, spending money, managing time, or communicating with someone. Begin with, looking back, and finish with what you learned. Let us now practice discussing goals. Imagine someone asks, "What are you working toward at the moment?" You could say, "At the moment, I'm working toward becoming more confident in professional conversations." You might continue, "My main goal is to express my ideas clearly without overthinking every sentence." Repeat, "I'm working toward becoming more confident. My main goal is to express my ideas clearly. I'm making steady progress. I still have a long way to go. I'm trying to stay consistent." The phrase, "I still have a long way to go," means, you have made some progress, but much more progress is needed. It is not necessarily negative. It can show honesty and motivation. For example, "My pronunciation has improved, but I still have a long way to go." You can also say, "I'm taking it one step at a time." This means you are progressing gradually, instead of trying to do everything immediately. Repeat, "I'm taking it one step at a time. I'm focusing on small improvements. I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself." Consistency matters more than perfection. Now answer these questions aloud. What skill are you currently trying to improve? What progress have you made so far? What is still difficult for you? What is your next step? Give full answers rather than one-word responses. For example, "I'm currently trying to improve my speaking fluency. I've become better at forming complete sentences, but I still pause too often when I feel nervous. My next step is to practice speaking aloud for 10 minutes every day." Let us continue with a longer conversation that combines feelings, empathy, advice, disagreement, and personal reflection. Imagine that a friend says, "I've been thinking about leaving my job, but I'm not sure whether it's the right decision." You respond, "That sounds like a difficult decision. What has been making you think about leaving?" Your friend says, "I don't feel like I'm learning anything new, and I've been feeling unmotivated for months." You reply, "I can understand why that would be frustrating. Have you spoken to your manager about taking on different responsibilities?" Your friend says, "Not yet. I assumed it wouldn't make a difference." You respond, "It may not solve everything, but it might be worth having the conversation before you make a final decision." Your friend says, "Perhaps, but I also feel that I need a completely new environment." You say, "I see your point. A new environment could give you fresh energy. At the same time, leaving without another position could create financial pressure." Your friend replies, "That's exactly what I'm worried about." You say, "Maybe you don't need to decide immediately. You could start exploring other opportunities while continuing in your current role." Your friend says, "That sounds more practical. I could update my resume and speak to a few people in the industry." You reply, "Exactly. That would give you more information and help you make a decision based on real options." Your friend says, "Thank you. I think I needed someone to help me look at the situation more calmly." Now, repeat the most useful lines. "That sounds like a difficult decision. What has been making you think about leaving?" "I can understand why that would be frustrating. It might be worth having the conversation." "I see your point. At the same time, maybe you don't need to decide immediately. You could start exploring other opportunities. That would help you make a more informed decision." Now, create your own version of this conversation. Change the situation. Perhaps someone is thinking about moving, beginning a course, ending a project, or making a major purchase. Respond with empathy. Ask a thoughtful question. Offer one gentle suggestion. Mention a possible disadvantage, and help the person identify a practical next step. Remember that advanced conversation is not only about using advanced vocabulary, it is about responding appropriately to another person's meaning and emotion. Listen before offering advice. Acknowledge feelings before discussing solutions. Disagree with ideas without attacking the person. Explain your experiences clearly, and give other people room to share theirs. Before we continue, take 1 minute to speak about a recent challenge. Explain what happened, how you felt, what you did, and what you learned. Use phrases from this practice activity, such as, at first, after a while, looking back, I realized that, and the experience taught me. Keep speaking even if you need to use simple words. The ability to continue expressing your meaning is more valuable than creating one perfect sentence. Now, let us bring everything together through advanced real-life conversation practice that reflects the way people actually speak in daily situations. In real conversations, topics change, interruptions happen, plans are adjusted, and people often need to explain themselves more clearly. Your goal is not to control every conversation perfectly. Your goal is to stay calm, understand the main idea, and respond in a way that keeps the interaction moving. Imagine that you are talking to a coworker during a break. They ask, "How is your day going so far?" You could reply, "It has been fairly productive, although I had to deal with an unexpected problem this morning." The coworker may ask, "What happened?" You answer, "One of the files I needed was missing, so I had to contact several people before I could continue." Your coworker says, "That sounds frustrating." You respond, "It was, but fortunately, we found the file in the end. It delayed me for a while, though." The coworker then asks, "Do you think you'll still finish everything today?" You say, "I should be able to, as long as nothing else goes wrong." The expression "as long as" means only if a particular condition is met. For example, "I can help you as long as I finish my work first." You might also say, "We can go for a walk as long as it does not rain." Repeat the useful lines. My day has been fairly productive. I had to deal with an unexpected problem. We found the file in the end. It delayed me for a while. I should be able to finish as long as nothing else goes wrong. Now, create your own version of this conversation. Describe your day so far. Mention one thing that went well and one thing that was difficult. Then explain what you still need to do. You could say, "My morning was quite busy, but I managed to complete most of my important tasks. I still need to answer a few emails before I can relax." A natural conversation often includes expressions that show partial agreement. Suppose someone says, "The meeting this morning was a complete waste of time." You may agree with part of that opinion, but not all of it. You could say, "I agree that it was longer than necessary, but I think some useful points came out of it." The expression "came out of it" refers to a result that developed from a situation. You might say, "At least one good idea came out of the discussion." You could also say, "Nothing useful came out of the argument." Repeat, "I agree that it was longer than necessary. Some useful points came out of it. I agree with you to some extent. I think there is another side to the issue. That is partly true. But now, imagine someone says, "People are less patient than they used to be." You might respond, "That may be true to some extent, especially because people are used to getting information quickly. On the other hand, modern life can also place people under a great deal of pressure." This answer shows balance, rather than simple agreement or disagreement. The phrase, "on the other hand," introduces a contrasting idea. Repeat it in context. Technology saves time. On the other hand, it can also create distractions. Working from home offers flexibility. On the other hand, some people feel isolated. Living in a city is convenient. On the other hand, it can be expensive and stressful. Now, choose a topic and give both sides. You might discuss online shopping, public transportation, social media, working from home, or living alone. Begin with one advantage. Then say, "On the other hand," and explain one disadvantage. Another useful skill is changing the topic naturally. In real conversations, people do not always announce a new subject directly. They often use phrases such as, "By the way, that reminds me," or, "Speaking of that." Imagine someone says, "I'm planning to travel next month." You respond, "That sounds exciting. Speaking of travel, have you booked your hotel yet?" The phrase "speaking of travel" connects the new question to the previous subject. You can say, "Speaking of work, have you heard about the new project?" Or, "Speaking of food, have you tried the new restaurant nearby?" Repeat, "By the way, I wanted to ask you something. That reminds me of something that happened yesterday. Speaking of work, have you heard the latest news? Before I forget, could I ask you a quick question?" Now, practice changing the topic. Imagine you are talking about the weather, but you want to ask about someone's weekend. You could say, "The weather should be better by Saturday. Speaking of Saturday, do you have any plans for the weekend?" Now, create another example in your own words. Sometimes you may need to interrupt politely. You should avoid speaking over people unnecessarily, but in some situations, you may need to add important information. You can say, "Sorry to interrupt, but may I add something?" You could also say, "Could I just say something here?" Or, "Before we continue, I think there is one point we should consider." Repeat. "Sorry to interrupt, but may I add something? Could I just say something here? Before we continue, there is one point we should consider. I don't mean to interrupt, but this may be important." If someone interrupts you, you can respond calmly. You might say, "Of course, go ahead." Or, "Let me finish this point, and then I'd like to hear your thoughts." The second response is polite but firm. Repeat, "Of course, go ahead. Let me finish this point first. Then I'd like to hear your thoughts. I'll come back to that in a moment." These expressions are especially useful in meetings and group conversations. Now, imagine a discussion at work. You say, "I think the main problem is that we do not have enough information." A colleague interrupts and says, "But we need to make a decision today." You respond, "I understand, and I'll come back to that in a moment. Let me first explain what information is still missing." This response keeps you in control without sounding aggressive. You acknowledge the interruption and then complete your thought. Let us now practice describing changes over time. This is common when discussing work, habits, relationships, cities, or personal progress. You can say, "Things have changed quite a lot over the past few years." You might continue, "We used to communicate mostly by email, but now we rely more on instant messaging and video calls." Repeat, "Things have changed quite a lot. We used to communicate mostly by email. Now we rely more on instant messaging." The biggest difference is, one thing that has remained the same is, now, describe how your English has changed. You might say, "I used to translate almost every sentence in my head. Now, I can respond more quickly in familiar situations. The biggest difference is that I feel less afraid of making mistakes." You can also compare your past and present habits. "I used to study only when I had a lot of free time, but now, I practice for a short period every day." Notice how this sentence shows a clear change. Now, complete these sentences aloud. "I used to find it difficult to. Now, I am better at." The biggest improvement has been, "I still need to work on." Another important real-life skill is explaining preferences with nuance. Instead of simply saying, "I like it," or "I do not like it," you can describe what you appreciate and what you would change. Imagine someone asks, "What do you think of your neighborhood?" You could say, "Overall, I like living there because it is quiet and convenient. The only drawback is that there are not many places to eat nearby." The word drawback means disadvantage. You could say, "The main drawback of working from home is the lack of social interaction." You might also say, "The apartment is spacious, but one drawback is that it receives very little natural light. Repeat. Overall, I like living there. The only drawback is, what I appreciate most is, the main thing I would change is, it has a lot going for it. The expression, it has a lot going for it, means, it has many positive qualities. For example, the job is demanding, but it has a lot going for it. The salary is good, the team is supportive, and the work is interesting. Now, choose something you know well, such as your city job, school, neighborhood, phone, or daily routine. Describe 2 things you like and 1 drawback. Try to sound balanced rather than completely positive or negative. Let us practice making recommendations. Imagine a friend is visiting your city and asks, "Where would you recommend staying?" You could say, "If you want to be close to the main attractions, I'd recommend staying in the city center. It can be a little expensive, but it will save you a lot of travel time." You may also say, "Another option would be to stay near the train station. The area is not as lively, but it is very convenient." This gives the person more than one choice. Repeat. I'd recommend staying in the city center. Another option would be, it depends on what matters most to you. If convenience is your priority, if you are trying to save money. Now, imagine someone asks, "What is the best way to improve speaking?" A balanced recommendation could be, I would recommend combining repetition with free speaking. Repetition helps you improve rhythm and pronunciation, while free speaking trains you to create your own sentences. You might continue, if you only repeat, you may become good at copying but still struggle to express original ideas. If you only speak freely, you may repeat the same mistakes. A combination of both methods is usually more effective. Now, answer the question in your own words. What would you recommend to someone who wants to improve English, but only has 20 minutes a day? Give a practical suggestion and explain why it would work. Let us now practice a social conversation that includes humor, uncertainty, and storytelling. Imagine a friend asks, "Did you manage to cook dinner last night?" You laugh and say, "I tried, but it did not exactly go according to plan." Your friend asks, "What happened?" You reply, "I forgot to check the oven, and by the time I remembered, the food was completely burned." Your friend says, "That sounds like a disaster." You respond, "It was. I opened all the windows, but the apartment still smelled terrible." Your friend asks, "So what did you eat?" You answer, "I ended up ordering food. Apparently, cooking was not my greatest skill yesterday." The phrase "did not exactly go according to plan" is a humorous way to say something went wrong. Repeat. It did not exactly go according to plan. By the time I remembered, the food was burned. I ended up ordering food. Apparently, cooking was not my greatest skill yesterday. Now, tell a short, light story about something that did not go according to plan. It could be a meal, a journey, a shopping trip, or a simple task. Use the expressions, I tried to, but, by the time, and ended up. Another advanced conversation skill is responding when you do not have enough knowledge about a subject. You do not need to pretend to be an expert. You can say, I do not know enough about the subject to have a strong opinion. You could add, from what I understand, there are good arguments on both sides. Repeat, I do not know enough about the subject. I would need to learn more before deciding. From what I understand, I could be mistaken, but that is only my impression. These expressions help you speak honestly and cautiously. For example, I could be mistaken, but I believe the policy changed recently. You are sharing your understanding without claiming complete certainty. Now, practice responding to a complex question. Do you think artificial intelligence will improve education? You might say, I do not know enough about the technology to make a definite prediction. From what I understand, it could make learning more personalized, but it could also create new challenges. The purpose is not to give the perfect opinion. The purpose is to show that you can discuss a difficult subject carefully and clearly. Let us now practice a longer daily life conversation. Imagine that you meet a friend after several months. You say, "It is really good to see you. It feels like it has been ages." Your friend responds, "I know. I cannot believe how much time has passed." You ask, "So, what have you been up to lately?" Your friend says, "Mostly work. To be honest, I started a new role a few months ago, so I have been trying to adjust." You respond, "How are you finding it?" Your friend says, "It is challenging, but in a good way. There is a lot to learn, and the pace is much faster than I expected." You say, "That sounds demanding. Do you feel like you are settling in now?" Your friend replies, "Slowly, yes. At first, I felt completely overwhelmed, but after a while, I became more familiar with the team and the responsibilities." You respond, "That is good to hear. Starting something new is always difficult." Your friend asks, "What about you? What have you been doing?" You say, "I have been focusing on improving a few personal habits. I am trying to manage my time better and become more consistent with exercise." Your friend says, "How is that going?" You answer, "Better than before. I still miss a day occasionally, but I am trying not to treat one bad day as a complete failure." Your friend responds, "That is a healthy way to look at it." You continue, "I think I used to expect myself to make progress perfectly. Now, I am learning that consistency does not mean never making mistakes. It means returning to the habit after you stop." Your friend says, "I completely agree. That is something I need to remember with my own goals." Now, repeat the most useful parts. "It feels like it has been ages." "What have you been up to lately?" "How are you finding it?" "Do you feel like you are settling in?" "At first, I felt overwhelmed. After a while, I became more familiar with everything. I am trying not to treat one bad day as a complete failure." Consistency means returning to the habit. Now, create your own version of this reunion conversation. Imagine you have not seen someone for 6 months. Explain what has changed in your life, describe one challenge, and mention one goal you are working toward. Then imagine the other person shares their experience. Ask 2 follow-up questions and give 1 supportive response. Let us finish with a complete speaking challenge that combines the conversation skills from the entire masterclass. Imagine that you are meeting someone for the first time at a community event. Introduce yourself and ask what brought them there. Listen to their imagined answer and ask a follow-up question. Share something about yourself, then move naturally into another topic. You might begin, "Hi, I do not think we have met before. I am Emma. What brought you to the event today?" Imagine the person says, "I recently moved to the area, and I wanted to meet some new people." You respond, "That makes sense. How have you been finding the area so far?" Imagine they say, "I like it overall, but I am still getting used to the transportation system." You reply, "I can understand that. It took me a while to become familiar with it too." Which part has been the most confusing? They explain that they have difficulty understanding the bus routes. You offer gentle advice. You may find it helpful to use the local travel application. It shows the routes in real time and tells you when to change buses. Then the person asks how long you have lived there. You answer with detail. "I have lived here for about 4 years. At first, I found the city a little overwhelming, but after a while, I began to appreciate how much there is to do." Now, change the topic naturally. "Speaking of things to do, have you visited the park near the river yet?" Imagine the person says no. Recommend it. "I would definitely recommend it, especially in the early evening. It is peaceful and there are several cafes nearby." Now, imagine the person asks whether you would like to meet there sometime. Respond by making a plan. That would be nice. Are you free next Saturday afternoon? They say they may be working. You answer, no problem. Check your schedule and let me know. We can always choose another day. Now, practice the complete interaction without reading every line. Introduce yourself, ask questions, respond with empathy, give advice, share a personal experience, make a recommendation, and arrange a possible future meeting. Keep speaking for 2 or 3 minutes. While you practice, remember that you do not need to use the exact phrases from this masterclass. Use them as building blocks. Change the names, places, times, feelings, and details. The more you personalize the language, the more easily you will remember it in a real situation. When you speak, focus first on meaning. Ask yourself, what am I trying to communicate? Then choose the clearest words you know. Do not stop simply because you cannot remember one perfect expression. Explain the idea another way. Use examples. Compare it to something familiar. Ask the other person for help if necessary. If you forget a word, you can say, I cannot remember the exact word, but it is something you use for. You can also say, what do you call the thing that? These are natural communication strategies. Fluent speakers also forget words. The difference is that they continue communicating. Repeat. I cannot remember the exact word. It is something you use for. What do you call the thing that? I am not sure how to say it, but let me explain it another way. Now, describe an object without saying its name. Choose a common object such as a charger, umbrella, wallet, refrigerator, or remote control. Explain what it looks like and what people use it for. This exercise trains you to stay flexible when vocabulary is missing. Finally, choose one real-life topic and speak about it for 3 minutes. You could describe your routine, explain a recent problem, discuss a decision, tell a personal story, recommend a place, or talk about a goal. Begin with a clear opening. Add supporting details. Use linking expressions such as however, because of that, at the same time, in the end, and looking back. Do not restart every time you make a mistake. Correct yourself naturally and continue. You can say, let me say that again, or what I meant was, this is real fluency. Fluency is not speaking without mistakes. It is maintaining communication even when mistakes happen. As you continue practicing English outside this masterclass, notice the conversations happening around you. Pay attention to how people begin speaking, how they react, how they ask for clarification, and how they end one topic before beginning another. Listen for useful sentence patterns rather than isolated words. When you hear an expression that seems useful, repeat it aloud. Then create 3 new sentences with the same pattern. If you hear, I did not expect it to take so long, you could create, I did not expect the meeting to be so difficult. I did not expect the restaurant to be so crowded. And, I did not expect the journey to be so tiring. This method turns listening into active practice. It also helps you understand that one sentence pattern can be used in many situations. Over time, these patterns become easier to access, and you begin speaking with less hesitation. Continue to challenge yourself with real questions. Ask yourself what you think, what you prefer, what you would do, what you have learned, and how you would explain a problem. Answer aloud, even when no one is listening. Each answer strengthens your ability to form ideas directly in English. Your progress may feel slow from day to day, but small improvements build on one another. A phrase that feels difficult today may feel natural after repeated use. A conversation that once caused anxiety may eventually become routine. Keep practicing complete thoughts. Keep asking follow-up questions. And keep giving yourself permission to speak before every sentence feels perfect. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. You have completed this real-life English conversation masterclass, and you should feel proud of the effort you made. Throughout this lesson, you practice starting conversations, asking follow-up questions, making polite requests, explaining problems, expressing feelings, sharing opinions, handling misunderstandings, and responding naturally in many everyday situations. Remember that fluency does not come from memorizing every sentence perfectly. It develops when you listen carefully, repeat useful phrases, create your own examples, and speak regularly without being afraid of mistakes. Keep practicing a little every day, and these conversation patterns will gradually become a natural part of your English. You can return to this video whenever you need more listening, speaking, pronunciation, or shadowing practice. Pause after the sentences, repeat them aloud, and replace the examples with details from your own life. The more personal your practice becomes, the easier it will be to remember and use the language in real conversations. If you found this masterclass helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon so you do not miss our future English learning lessons. Also, write a comment below and tell me which real-life conversation situation you would like to practice next. Keep listening, keep speaking, and keep building your confidence, one conversation at a time. Thank you again for learning with me. I am Emma, and I will see you in the next English learning video.